We have a very active weather week ahead with daily severe weather storm chances and looks to be extensive flooding could unfold by later this week. So I'll be doing daily updates on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified. So let's take a look at the overall setup going forward. And here's the bigger picture. We've got this extended trough, this jet stream that's going to be dipping all the way down into the Four Corners regions. That's going to send off kind of pulses of energy, and the main system is going to hang back. It's going to be right here, and it doesn't really go anywhere all week long. So it'll be sending out these little short waves out ahead of it, and that's going to provide the lift in the atmosphere to produce widespread showers and thunderstorms that are likely going to turn severe and could mean all three modes of severe storms, and then set up like an extensive flooding threat with multiple days of very heavy rain. To the north, we've got some colder air that's going to be trapped up there waiting for all this to move out. And once it does, it'll finally clear out the atmosphere, but that won't happen until Sunday heading into Monday. While further south, we've got all the warmer air surging from the south. So that's going to pull in all that moisture and lead to all that severe weather that's going to likely unfold later this week. So it all kicks off kind of really today. I mean, we're watching moisture return. So this is your dew points. So things were fairly on the drier side, but now things are kind of moistening it up, and they will be all throughout the day. So as the first system moves in, we're going to be experiencing a lot of high winds returning and the moisture surging back well into the 60s, extending into Oklahoma as well as into Kansas. And this continues to surge really all the way into Iowa, portions of Missouri here. And that sets up a significant low pressure right here as we get into the evening time frame down to a 985. And this is continuing to kind of intensify with the latest updates with the return of the moisture surge. And right there, elongated within the Kansas and Oklahoma border, that is your triple point. So that's where likely the most numerous significant severe weather threat will unfold, at least for today. And then of course, further to the north, we've got snow. We even have some winter storm watches and warnings in place for areas of the Dakotas back into Minnesota. They're expecting like 8 to 12 inches of snow. But for today, we've got a severe weather episode that's likely to unfold later on in this evening. So the Storm Prediction Center will likely update at 8 o'clock. I'm doing this video before that, but nonetheless, we do have a significant tornado threat, a 10% threat up here right by the triple point up there towards Kansas back into Oklahoma. Further south, we do have a lower end tornado threat, but we do have the capability of producing some significant hail today, folks. So we are going to be dealing with a little bit of a capping inversion, so they're going to have to be fighting that every step of the way. But if that cap does in fact erode and kind of break, I mean, it won't take much in this atmosphere to tower those supercell thunderstorms to produce some of that larger hail, golf ball, tennis ball, even some isolated baseball size hail is definitely not out of the question the further north, right along that triple point back into Kansas and Oklahoma. And we'll be dealing with some tornadic activity. So this atmosphere will be rotating big time, especially where that low pressure is. So we do have fairly significant tornado parameters continuing to unfold across this region. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center went ahead and upgraded to that 10% risk of higher probability of seeing a tornado or two today across that region. But that is only the things to come, because as we look further back off to the west, we'll be watching that jet stream continuing to unfold and sending out pulses of energy out ahead of it. And look at this fairly significant jet streak that's surging all the way into Iowa, back into Wisconsin, getting into Michigan. There's the low pressure center. That's where the snow will be flying over the Dakotas and back into areas of Minnesota. But things get going later on tonight into the overnight hours. We'll have to watch this area kind of rapidly intensify, and anything that does form within this sector, it will turn severe very quickly, producing that larger hail and some tornadic activity. But further north, this all goes into the overnight hours, and that leads to tomorrow with an extended, widespread, likely significant severe weather outbreak. Look at this massive area where they have a 10% hatched risk for tomorrow for not only tornadoes, but could be some stronger tornadoes, EF2, EF3, and some capabilities of even saying, long track tornadoes. So this could be a dangerous day and a widespread, significant severe weather episode, producing some of the higher winds upwards to 75 miles an hour in multiple states, a good 6 or 7 states here. And then all the larger hail that we're going to be dealing with as well. The atmosphere is capable producing some very large hail even into the overnight hours. We could be even looking at some tennis ball, even some baseball size sporadic activity even in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That includes areas of Arkansas back into Missouri as well as into Illinois. So it could be a dangerous day in overnight time frame. I was looking at some of these updrafts, and of course these models, they will update all throughout the day, but just kind of gives you an idea where the most of the upward rising motion air is right there within the Oklahoma and Kansas vicinity, right where that low pressure center will start to set up shop. And these just surge as they go east northeast trajectory. Further south, they do have a little bit of that ridge going to be kind of hanging on for most of the southeast. That's why most of these systems with the jet stream are going to be kind of missing out on the Dixie Alley region. Everything will be pulled further north with this particular setup. As storms start to form, they will be lifting east northeast trajectory. But yeah, looking at some of the different models, I mean, there's a lot of guidance coming together. And so as we head into that overnight time frame, we could be looking at some significant hail likely unfolding. That's why we put out that potential, that baseball size hail within Oklahoma and even portions of North Texas potentially in the overnight hours, likely after midnight time frame in the wee hours of the morning. Unfortunately, these look to be overnight type setups, and this just continues into Arkansas back as well as into Tennessee, Kentucky. There's the overall hazard map. So right now we've got that system coming in, right? So we've got the high winds going to be pushing in, a lot of increasing high winds today. We've got red flag warnings. This area is desperate for rain. And then further to the north, that's where we have the winter weather advisories and the winter storm warnings up there for the Dakotas, north of Wisconsin, northern portions of Wisconsin, and pretty much central to northern areas of Minnesota. And there's the flood threat, right? This could be leading to a serious flood threat as it gets going tomorrow night. That really amps up on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday, folks. So that's why we have an extended flood watch in place for multiple states. I mean, we could be looking at possibly 7 states could see maybe double-digit rain totals by all this is said and done. There's an upgraded moderate risk for this area right here in Arkansas, western areas of Tennessee, southern portions of Missouri, getting into Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, as well as in Ohio. A lot of heavy rainfall with the stalled frontal boundary that will likely kind of stall out in this area. Warm front surges back to the north. That's why we have the systems coming in from the west, going to tap into that energy. That's where we could have some big time hail producers right there in southeastern Texas, Oklahoma, as well as into northern portions of North Texas, and then extending all the way into Arkansas, Tennessee, back into Kentucky, goes all the way into Ohio as we get deeper into the week. But that's just the beginning, folks. Like I mentioned, it's just kind of relentless, one after another, as we have a more significant dip in the jet stream trying to take advantage. And then the main system is still out west, right? So it's going to be still out west waiting to come through. And this is the setup you don't want to see in April, folks. When you got warm air coming in from the south, you got the south wind, and then you got the trough coming in out west. This usually is a recipe for big time severe weather events, and that's why we're under a significant threat, especially with the main system that just kind of hangs out and sends out pulses of energy all throughout the week and sends out daily episodes. And with the stalled frontal boundary, that just adds insult to injury with the extensive flood threat that will likely unfold and the waves of energy with showers and thunderstorms, strong to severe thunderstorms, likely more hail getting into the action on Thursday, and kind of the same similar areas. This could extend into West Virginia by then, maybe even extend further into the Northeast as well as into Pennsylvania. But you kind of get the idea. We've got a lot of extensive heavy rain, folks. This is your time frame on Thursday, another moderate risk. And then there's on Friday, another moderate risk. If anything, it might pull back a little bit because it does seem to slow down with the second system, that jet stream coming in. But yeah, you got areas of Missouri could be under a moderate risk for literally 4 days in a row, right? That's kind of rare, folks, having a moderate risk for excessive rainfall in some of the same areas for 4 consecutive days. That spells trouble with significant flooding, and it's not like they need the rain in this area. These areas are already kind of saturated. So yes, definitely concerning on top of the severe storms with all the extensive flooding that likely could unfold. But Friday could be a more significant event. I mean, look at this dip in the jet stream with the main system continuing out west. That's again going to send out as an extensive jet streak out ahead of it. And you got the upward rising motion air with a lot of lift, higher dew points again, and just kind of sitting, waiting for that next piece of energy. And we could be looking at more significant severe storms heading into Texas, southeastern portions of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee. Kind of the similar areas get hit again in the favored warm sector. Even on Friday, this could be really amped up by then, by the time we actually get, because we're still 4 days out from this particular setup. But there's a lot of moisture return, so we could be looking at even some heavier rain combined with all the severe storms there in Texas and Oklahoma. And again, just feeds into some of the similar areas, while eventually that cold front is going to be surging further south and kind of put a squash on all this severe storm that's going to unfold. But we got to deal with it because it's coming, folks. There's the setup on Friday. Yes, we could be looking at some more big time hail, more tornadic spin ups across the same similar regions that just gets inundated day after day. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. So I think by Saturday, and especially there by Sunday, heading into Monday, this cold air will finally win out, right? So this cold air continues to press further south. So you'll start to feel in some areas on Saturday, you'll feel more areas on Sunday. And then by Monday morning, it'll be all the way down to the coastline, right? So everybody will get in the action. And that, of course, storms don't like cold air. So that will put the squash, at least for temporarily. It is April. It's a stormy month. So at least temporarily put a squash on the severe weather episodes, right? So here's the overall setup on the snow front, because of course with cold air, we still got some snow around potentially, obviously in the higher elevations, but a little bit rare to even see some snow still flying there in the Texas Panhandle. They could pick up a couple of inches across that region, but where the winter storm watches and warnings are in place now, we'll pick up again 12 to possibly even some isolated totals even higher than that. Some pretty decent, significant snows for this time of year across the northern tier. But this is the concern. Now, on top of all the severe storms, we're getting a lot of tornadoes this week. We're going to get a lot of big hail this week. And then we're going to get a lot of wind damage, straight line wind damage, 60, 70, 75, 80 miles an hour at times, can't be ruled out. And then all the extensive flooding, right? So we've got multiple inches of rain across this region where the stalled frontal boundary and these significant systems are going to be coming in. Look, across the board, it's a pretty wet week, right? So April is a wet month already because it's big, springtime. It rains a lot in the spring, but it comes in with a vengeance. And where you're looking at like 7 different states that could get some double-digit totals, and you got some isolated areas of 18 inches. That's just on what some of the models were kind of showing. You saw what happened down there in South Texas just a couple days ago, right? So most guidance was hitting at maybe 10, 12 inches. There were some isolated pockets that ended up with 20 2 inches, folks. We could be looking at some heavier totals like that, and even possibly more, with especially 4 days in a row of extensive moderate risk for excessive flooding is deeply concerning for the next 5 days. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.